The UK as necessary information sharing transactions in Europe to hinder severe problems for safety and the economics, two ex-Intellect chiefs include told. Ex-MI6 head Sir John told the negotiations were no a null-sum play. Former GCHQ chief Mr. Hannigan told it would not be ethics to endanger to conceal content that might halt terror. While terrorism attacks hit Paris in deceased 2015, UK Intellect scrambled to discover out which it could on the rioters. At the UK's spy agent, GCHQ, a crew treated on trace their communication time MI5 looked for protection to the UK. It was all a mark how contemporary threats, if terror, cyber attacks or risky subversive activity, seldom honor national borders. The Paris attacks showed how such accountable cross-national borders in more easy rather than data that might halt them. How led several to claim for nearer company operation, time other quoted it as testimony of the requirement instead of for much stronger domestic boundary controls. Or we requirement to be capable to job really close in our Europe partners in procedure to maximize our own safety or their safety benefits our safety. The more than safe France is, the less hazardous human beings are potential to crucifix of Calais to Dover. On one standard, Brexit does slight to endanger these key intellect and safety relationships. The is since in nearly all cases the intellect fluid bilaterally, nation to nation, quite rather than via Brussels. As an establishment, the EU's part is very bounded, Mr. Hannigan told. It doesn't very get implicated in any dividing of operative intellect. The actual company operation on operative, resist terrorism or cyber or enemy state, goes on bilaterally and ever has. GCHQ, for copy, would include a relation in Paris who could provide data pertinent to the protect of France would be share rapidly. Officials in Europe and the UK are as well aware how intellect and safety is a family member UK force and some countries will not wish to be cut off of Britain's deposit. Same item how is drive the quality assurance of such relationships now is the dark of the risk and the overall anxiety on he, Andrew Parker, the present chief of E5, said the Intellect and Safety Board recent year, in his comments turned on in its yearly paper. Part of Europe is frightened of terror and the some part is frightened of Russia and both of halves wish us to assist them. How will not changing in Brexit, he told. The just considerable EU intellect dividing flesh is INTCEN, that shares analyze of the threats in policymakers. Several Europe intellect commanders say how, although Britain is an intellect power station, down there are areas, such as Polar Africa, wherever some Europe services may include superior insights. Since Britain is a net donor, quite rather than radio of intellect, especially in E5's resist terrorism expertise and GCHQ's wide gallery of communication and cyber operation, down there was debate in by the government previous recent year on with which several named the safety excess as a bargaining microchip in talks. But the ex-intellect commanders cautious versus game the safety map. Same Brexit negotiating is not a null-sum play, argues Sir John, who was head of MI6 before 2014. Safety company operation can assist build an ambience in that the EU 27 and the UK can see how it is in all's interests to support an environment of company operation. If each party try to use it as a bargaining microchip or a spot of leverage he's potential to be adverse on both of sides, he says. Theresa May's email to Donald Incisor, CEO of the Europe Justice installation out her kiosk on Britain's stance amazed several during the Intellect Society in its tongue, and the three serving UK intellect chiefs along pronounced concerns, on to one formal. Mr. Hannigan, who left word GCHQ up the email, as well warning versus game the safety map in forthcoming trading talks. I indicate how could you perhaps believe of retention content how might halt a bomber assault in exchanging for minnow quotas or thing. He's ridiculous. But down there is one question how does worry about UK spies on Brexit, and how is information? The capacity to go information through national borders is urgent, such as data on suspects driving of one nation to else. The is though more than of an question for police and boundary forces, but their job overlaps in the resist terrorist job of safety services who as well more stake information on cyber threats. Any obstacle to the stream would be a actual question, X and present officials tell. It would be a really severe issue, says Sir John. Addition, same intellect these days is relying really hard on possessing accessing to information. Dividing and keeping information requires meet EU safeguards on confidentiality. We include bin and busy gamer in how during Europe and now Europe rules will be done out of us and we will be external the instant legislative scope yet how is thing how the UK by the government is departure to include to address really previous on, how we go on to hold information. The EU rules include as well been profiled by legislative challenges at the Europe Trial of Judiciary, ECJ. Mr. Hannigan, who had 2 transactions in the legislative challenges as chief of GCHQ, told it would not be as easy as Creature released of the load of the trial. He told it was a beat innocent to believe Creature complimentary of the ECJ would resolve all our problems. It will resolve our problems if we just requested information to stream during the UK and never to keep its national borders, he says. Addition, yet how would indicate cut ourselves off of the contemporary planet how tool which the EU high as appropriate regulatory of confidentiality or protect of confidentiality is extremely essential to us and it does efficaciously offer the ECJ a say in which we make. The US has had to conduct negotiations transactions in the EU and that has proven a hard and long trial. But a UK transactions will be urgent, not fair for domestic safety but the economics as a entire. Same UK counterpart, that we will now requirement to conduct negotiations, will be really hard, says Mr. Hannigan. Or we will include to get several period to do it. But he's urgent to the economics widely.